This season of The Digital Fix is sponsored in part by Uconnect, providing true transparency for brands and agencies in the biddable media space. Visit them today at uconnect.com.
You're listening to The Digital Fix, digital marketing done right. This season is presented by Mio Marketplace. Mio, the marketer's matchmaker. If you're a brand marketer or an agency, media, or platform that works with them, Mio is a marketplace built just for you. Visit them at miomarketplace.com. And by Moy & Halter, a strategic consultancy. If you're struggling with getting your creative and content to efficiently work with your media strategy, we help solve for that. Reach out for a free consultation today at moyandhalter.com. And now, here's your hosts for The Digital Fix, Sean Halter and Stephen Moy.
You are listening to The Digital Fix, the podcast for all things digital marketing, presented by Mio Marketplace. At Mio, we love to do the heavy lifting, turns marketing insights and outreach into action. Visit them today at miomarketplace.com. As a reminder, The Digital Fix is hosted by myself, the much more handsome, much smarter than I, Stephen Moy. Both of us with Moy & Halter, a consultancy looking to help bridge the brand's gap between agencies and AI. Our guests today are Jason Ng, CMO over at Typeface.ai, and media cartographer and bit of a shit kicker from time to time, Evan Shapiro. Thank you guys all for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Evan is the only man who has better hair than Stephen Moy on a regular basis in New York City, and you always can catch him in the room. Let's start with you a little bit, Evan. You are never short for words. First of all, you have your own podcast that you do as well. I want to give you a chance to kind of plug that right here, if you don't mind.
Sure. It's the Media Odyssey podcast. We look at the media world from both sides of the Atlantic. Myself from New York in the United States, unabashedly so, and Marion Ranchette, who is a French woman living in Amsterdam. So she brings I would say, a global and European point of view to things. And it's a lot of fun. This Friday, not that this is going to air before then, but we're doing a live stream earnings report on Apple, Meta, and Microsoft. And you can listen to that on demand later.
You say unabashedly so, but maybe you should say bashedly so, because you are always beating the crap out of everybody in the industry. Let's stay with you for just a minute. First question we typically ask is called digital done right or digital done wrong. In your case, sometimes pick somebody that you feel like is either getting things right or getting things wrong these days, and why, Evan?
So one of the predictions I made this year was that mainstream media would adopt and embrace the practices and platforms of the creator economy. BBC just announced a huge deal with YouTube. And so congratulations to them. On Monday, I dropped a piece on my Substack newsletter, Media War and Peace, about Disney and the fact that they're missing $1 billion in revenue by not taking the 500 films that they have up on YouTube right now in the rent or buy section and just allowing them to be watched for free with ads. If they just click that box, I believe over the next decade, it's $1 billion in cost-free income. Now, that to me is an example of somebody doing finally something right, BBC in the UK, after following all the rest of their fellow public broadcasters are finally doing something with YouTube. But Disney is failing to do something which could earn them money today at no cost. And I believe my prediction is they will embrace the creator economy platforms and practices very soon. And when they do, just like when they got into premium streaming, they will change the nature of the creator economy ecosystem, not single-handedly, but they will start the change, the wave that comes after it.
You're a big advocate, I think, in some ways of YouTube. We're going to let you dig into that a bit deeper in just a little bit. Jason, how about from your side? Who do you kind of pick and why right now for digital done right?
Yeah, so I'm looking very closely at what's happening with the Super Bowl. Also, my Seahawks are in it, so I'm very excited about that.
Wow.
And one, thank you. And one brand that's done well, and not just by buying expensive ads, but learning how to leverage digital and social really well around this time is Duolingo. So they've turned their mascot and their voice into something that people actually want to follow for entertainment, not just for the ad value. And, you know, one of the things they're doing this year is they're doing something around Bad Bunny 101 ahead of the halftime show because he is performing, and they're using just short, funny content to make that moment more accessible, tapping into culture while creating a cultural moment on their own. And if you remember last year, they did something really funny around how their mascot Duo is dead, that whole stunt last year. And I think it's just a great example of a conversation piece that really fits their identity and their personality and really built a lot of earned media from that.
Lauren Weinberg on this week's episode, that's also who she picked last week. It's so funny. All of these brands and Duolingo's managed to pop right back up in the top a little bit. Steven?
Yeah, funny speaking. I used to live in Boston, so Patriot got that. And I live in New York. I never can talk about any of my Boston team because I went to school there. But like good timing, very interesting. Finally, see more activity with tentpole event like Super Bowl, right? But it's interesting. I don't know what's your take. We'd love to start with, Evan, about like we inevitably we have to talk about AI. Like after CES, NRF, and we have a lot of physical AI innovation or narrow AI innovation. And I'm working with a lot of C-suite at the brand level. Like, the question, in addition to AEO and SEO, what else AI practically will make an impact to the business? Let's start with Evan.
I think that and I've written a lot about this, there's two aspects of this. The media business's adoption of AI will be, I think, best personified in very unsexy ways: discovery, ad targeting, audience building. And when you look at who's succeeding with AI, it's also the companies who are investing most directly in AI, but they are also the ones not selling AI directly to consumers necessarily, like OpenAI and the rest. It's Google who builds Gemini into everything: your email, your search. If you look at their earnings reports, which you should, if you really want to know where that company's going, read their earnings reports. They are showing that they're monetizing Gemini search results at the same rate as Google. They are replacing Google with Gemini. That's how AI will be won. And so very much so in media and entertainment, the companies who adopt AI to help discovery, the average consumer now takes 20 minutes to find something to watch on streaming. 20 fucking minutes. That's inexcusable, which is why Netflix is adding all
the length of a show.
Yeah. Well, that's why Netflix is adding all these daily podcasts and all this other things to their platform to shorten that length of time to search to a certain extent, although there's advertising to sell in them. So that's one of the ways. And then the other is the data and outcomes and all the measurability of connected television sucks ass. And I believe that the money that still has not come to connected television viewing, even though the viewing is there, will be solved by AI. Let's build the audiences better. Let's make sure the targeting is better. And then let's measure the fucking outcomes better. And I think those are the ways that AI will best impact media and entertainment. I don't think AI is capable of writing a screenplay or acting in them. I don't think it will replace the creative arts. I don't think there's anybody who uses AI on a regular basis who actually thinks that's going to happen. The great improvements will be things we don't necessarily see out loud. And then the reduction of costs on production and things like that as well.
We need a swear jar for every Evan episode, that's for sure. Jason, quick question.
I work at Typeface, and we are an AI solution that helps marketers scale personalized campaigns across all their channels while staying in brand. So I do get a front row seat in terms of how a lot of big companies are leveraging AI today and what they want in the future. And when we look at AI, there's certainly the AEO piece, are certainly like developing better creative and emails and things like that. But we think about AI not just as like, how does this make me more productive as an individual, but how does it make teams more productive? How does it, we talk a lot about this idea of workflows and using agents to make your workflows more efficient. So one example is we have, a global athletic sportswear provider that they are very much into their storytelling. But when it comes down to like, how do I distribute this campaign in a very personalized way across, many regions, across different product lines, the actual work to get that done, it involves a lot of logistics, a lot of versioning, localization. It's all the non-sexy stuff you hear about advertising and marketing. And that's where an AI solution like ours comes into play, because it automates a lot of that operational work. It gives creatives the time and freedom to focus on doing the storytelling and things like that really matter. And what we're finding is when AI is done right in a lot of these companies, they're able to generate much more output and volume. They're able to do things faster and focus on that storytelling and instead of that production. Thing that is holding a lot of companies back today is they need to account for how this AI or how this technology changes the way they need to work. So it isn't just about individuals using AI better. It's about having that AI work with teams and work alongside people to create those outputs and generate those outcomes. So it really becomes both a technology issue and challenge, which is being addressed, but also a people challenge in terms of how do we change the way we work.
It's such a generic term still. We're starting to layer things on top of it. This is agentic AI. This is this is that. I'm sure this year we'll see even more of that kind of splintering of what falls in, what doesn't. This is a chatbot. This is this. You talked a little bit, Jason, kind of about what you do over there at Typeface and what you guys are doing as a company. What do you feel like you're looking to forward most this year when it comes to kind of what your company is doing itself?
I'm looking forward to how agents and how teams are now really starting to culturally, they know AI. We've been talking about AI for several years now. I think this is where, if I could use some profanity, the shit gets real, in terms of like who's going to do it well and who's not. And I think the people who are being very hand wavy, like I use ChatGPT to generate emails, like that is like 3 years ago. The ones that are really actively finding success are the ones that have created processes and systems of work that allow for the AI to really do what it does well, which is automate all of that routine, boring stuff. And it allows teams to work faster. So teams that are really embracing AI are the ones that think about the workflow, that think about how do I work, how do teams and all the people around me work within that AI system to do things on brand and scale out their campaigns in a way that they've never been able to do before. I think this is where the outcomes really start to take shape.
Evan, you're going to get us all in trouble. We're all going to have to go to church on Sunday or something.
Sorry, you invited the wrong guy.
Yeah. This is true. I want you to talk a little about what you're doing, kind of sitting in the position that you're in, Evan. I subscribe to your Substack. I only subscribe to two. Yours and Shingy's are the only ones actually out there.
Oh, wow. Thanks so much.
Of course. But at the same time, one of the things I feel like, especially I want you to be able to talk about what you do and why you do it. But one of the things I always take away is this chasm between what's happening in the traditional media space still and what's happening obviously over in the connected TV and OTT space. And you probably don't use this word chasm. I forget the word that it is that you use. Cliff is probably the word that you use. But, it isn't this just general transition where I feel like what I've been seeing in your Substack is like this group here, that ship has already sailed. This other group, they're not maybe necessarily shifting. They're just dying. And so this pool is getting smaller because they're not willing to shift. Am I right? Am I wrong? Have I missed something along the way? Talk to us a little bit about that.
I did do a study on generational divide in media consumption, where it's millennials and younger and Xers and older. But what's happening is millennials turn 46, 47 now, and Gen Z turns 31, 32. And Gen A turns 16 and 17. These younger behaviors are now the norm. And that's where you see Barb in the UK saying that YouTube has surpassed BBC for total reach on video in the fourth quarter of last year. You are having companies and organizations who have ignored this for too long who are going to just die. And I think they'll become more and more obvious every single year. But then there are those that are transitioning, mostly because the nature of its being won't allow it to fail. The BBC is a good example of this. They've had a really interesting couple of years. They just lost all of their senior leadership because of a controversy with the president of the United States. I don't know if you heard about this. And so, now they're at a pivotal moment in time, but they're not going to go away. And they have one of the largest libraries of content on the face of the earth. They are still the largest media outlet in Britain. If not the largest, then one of the largest streamers in Britain in pure hours watched and number of users. That's because they're free and they don't have commercials, and they're not allowed to have commercials. They're supported by the public. We don't understand that here in America, how that works. And so those companies are not going to go away. So they will evolve, and they are evolving. And if you look at BBC Studios and ITV Studios, you're seeing examples of traditional media companies evolving. Crucially, this is the year I think the chasm closes. The generations blur to the point where millennials are now taking over major businesses. They're thinking more and more like the older people who founded a lot of parts of this industry. The generational leadership will change itself, and mainstream media is going to embrace the creator economy because there's billions, if not trillions, of dollars of income there. And 70% of the population of the world lives in these creator platforms most of the time. So I think that's the big shift, is there's been these divides between trad media and the creator economy, between millennials and younger and Xers and older. This is the year this all melds together into what I call the affinity economy. And the BBC announcement proved me right. In the first month of the year, we're going to see that cascade as the year goes on.
I'm going to let Stephen ask the next question. The only thing I wanted to add to that, Evan, it's interesting, how the old pilot season used to work. They'd make these shows and they'd test them out.
Sounds adorable.
I feel like when you look at TikTok or anything else, like, is there a chance that's going to become kind of that next ideation? You might see a small, short bit that starts on one of these channels and then eventually moves.
There's not the chance that that's going to become the Holy Water Fox Darman deal that was just announced in quick succession over the last 6-8 months. Fox invests in Holy Water, a micro TV, vertical TV app and production company. Now Darman, one of the biggest creators, if not the biggest scripted creator on the face of the earth, makes a deal with Holy Water and Fox. It's not about to happen. It's happening.
Yeah.
I'm not predicting something that's coming.
Yeah. It's here.
It's already behind us. Disney is bringing vertical stuff to their platform already. So is Netflix. And by the way, the micro drama wave, the hype bubble there, is going to turn into exactly that. Disney having vertical stuff on their app, Netflix doing the same. Procter and Gamble doing 50 episodes of a micro soap for TikTok and Instagram, which they've already announced. So all this stuff is already happening. It's not a prediction. It's a weather report, frankly.
Yeah. And Jason, it'll be interesting again to see how AI weaves its way into that. Stephen, next question is yours, my friend.
Now you see ChatGPT start selling ads, right? Show a lot of customer already in my mind, like through consulting, asking, hey, should they allocate budget, kind of like new media mix? I'm curious about you guys' opinion, and also I would love to hear from Evan, especially content. What other content could happen in the AI channel? Almost like it's a new touch point. We have to, it's inevitable. Well, let's start with Jason first and then Evan.
As a ad buyer, you want to place ads where you know the audience is. And we know people are spending much more of their time and using answer engines instead of Google today. And none of us really complained when Google started introducing ads, or it was probably from day one they had ads, because those ads were very relevant and contextual to that person. So like I search for shoes, I might see a shoe ad. I'm not going to know the difference oftentimes between that shoe ad and what's an organic listing. So I think if OpenAI and others do it right, and that it's introduced in a way that feels very native to that experience where you can't really tell the difference, I think folks will be okay with it. I was telling, my kid the other day that before we had ChatGPTs using it too much for his homework, that we didn't have something like this when I was going to school. We didn't even really have Google back then. And the fact that you're not even paying for this right now, I mean, it's pretty remarkable how much value you get out of it. So from the business and working in technology, like, yes, I can see why they want to monetize that. I was at CES a few weeks ago, and now everyone and their mother is selling advertising. Like, it is a thing, and it's how you monetize attention and people's time. So if the time is going there, then yes, there ought to be ads, as long as those ads aren't disruptive and they're actually additive to the experience, or contextual, I should say. I think it's a good thing, and quite frankly, it's very expensive to operate a company like OpenAI. So it's much needed in order to make the economics work.
We had a guy that came to our door and sold us books called encyclopedias. That's how old I am, my friend. That was our form of chat.
Question for Evan. I'm also more curious about you have a very strong point of view about creator economy. Is that a content play into that? I would love to hear your thought, the whole thing.
Yeah, I think what's most surprising is that ChatGPT built a business model without putting advertising in it. So that's worrisome because the business model that they've been pursuing up until now is not sustainable. They've proven that. If you look at the offering that they're going out now to raise money at $250 billion valuation, it shows them losing, I don't know, like $128 billion 3 years from now, 4 years from now, right? Burning cash continually. And that's because they're operating under a SaaS or a subscription model that just no one can math it out. No one can math it out. No one has been able to math it out. Basically, I'm sorry to pat myself on the back again, but predicted this would happen. last year, my prediction article for the year talked about the circular economy of the AI business right now and how it's dangerously close to popping as a bubble. And that concerns me. I also, in that same article, talked about Google, as I was just saying, using it to replace its advertising business. 20% of the advertising economy is intelligence, search. Last year, Google search surpassed iPhone revenues for the first time in history, ever. They're not going to lose that business. So that's 20%, 25% of the advertising economy. Google has the right model. They're going to build. No one pays for email. Remember when we used to pay for email? No one pays for search. So that's the primary product I think is around AI, is search and the advertising that goes with it. Solve that first, and everything else about AI begins to take care of itself, because there's a lot of money there to support this irrational economy, which is now building data centers around the world. What happens the day that OpenAI cannot fulfill its order to NVIDIA for the number of chips it's guaranteed they're going to buy for the investment that NVIDIA has put into OpenAI? It's a dangerous, remember the dot-com bubble burst? That's where we're at. So that concerns me a great deal. And then, yes, I think it is a search product first and primarily. And then within that, the first biggest search engine in the world is Google. Do you know what the second largest search engine in the world is?
OpenAI?
YouTube.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, Stephen, yes, once you solve search, you'll also be able to solve search.
There's YouTube in there again. All right, we've got time for 2 questions. I'm going to ask the next one. Stephen, you're going to get the last one. Jason, this is talking a little bit about content itself. There's so much content that's out there, to Evan's point earlier as well. And yet you build it, you see if it gets sticky, and then it just gets kind of stuck somewhere. One of the things it seems like you guys are working on, at least a little bit, I'd love to kind of get your perspective on it, is either taking some of that content and reimagining it, or creating just a different life cycle with it. So can you talk a little bit about that from a Typeface AI standpoint?
Yeah, so we make content much easier and much faster to produce. And that's where AI really plays a important role, and how you can leverage that technology to its full effect. And companies are doing that today. And it's easy now to create emails. It's much easier, especially as these engines get better on how to produce content that is not only on brand, but that's of a quality level that's almost indistinguishable from what people can actually create. What we're now finding, though, and it's something I mentioned up front, is like, okay, you have all this content, now what, right? And like, how do you create the workflow to get that content out the door and, flight it and traffic through all of your different publishing paths? And so our solution focuses a lot on how do you make that much more seamless. But we're still finding in many cases that the bottleneck in terms of how campaigns get out the door has shifted from what used to be, I can't produce enough content, to I can't approve this content fast enough because I have so much of it. And a lot of companies now are also afraid that they're going to let something out the door that was AI assisted, let's call it, that just wasn't good, or it missed the mark somehow. And people are going to be talking about it on social media about how someone has, 3 ears on their face or whatever, right? And so I think it's really important now to figure out, how do you account for how you're going to deal with all of this content, and how you're going to be able to still have that speed advantage that AI gives you. And so we did a study recently that showed that, roughly 2/3 of people are saying that it's my workflow or it's my process that's causing me to not be fast or to miss cultural moments. And so really that next step is really figuring out, you've moved the bottleneck from one area to this other area. How do you now leverage AI to help you with that?
Evan, you get the last word.
I think what the conversation here has proven, that AI is a great saver of time and efficiency maker, but it is not the end product. It should not be the end product. It will always be a marriage of the technology and the humanity. It's always going to need human curation and human prompting from experts, people who know what they're doing, in order to reflect your brand correctly and reflect your outcomes that you're looking for.
Stephen, you get the very last question. It's a minute each to you guys. Go ahead and ask it.
If you guys are going to invite anybody, right, dead or alive, to join your keynote presentation in a big event like possible, who will you invite? Evan first.
I would ask the boards of all the major media organizations on the face of the earth to attend.
Who's going to pay for those passes, Evan?
They're all rich. They're all rich. They all should be there, but I can talk frankly right to them. Listen, they can choose to ignore me at that point, but at least they'll have heard me.
It's the new Davos. It's somehow we combine the word Evan and Davos in there, and that's what it is. Jason, same question. There you go. Sorry, my bad pronunciation of it. Davos. Jason, how about on your side? Who would you pick as a dream keynote?
I would pick someone who's no longer with us, whose legacy I think really endures in the marketing space, and that would be David Ogilvy. So as AI makes the automatable, I think what really is key, and Evan, you mentioned this, is like where humans fit in. And I think humans really add judgment and taste in a way that AI will never replicate. And David Ogilvy is the person who basically wrote the Bible on taste, on what modern creative effectiveness is. And I go back and I read that book, Ogilvy on Advertising, and everything in there is so accurate and timeless even to this day. The importance of the audience, earning attention with clarity, ultimately trying to sell product, which is the goal of marketing. And so I think what he would have to say in this age are things that people ought to really pay attention to, because those things are timeless and true.
On behalf of myself, Stephen Moy, we want to thank you, Jason Ng, and you, Evan Shapiro, for joining us, of course, on this episode of The Digital Fix. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thanks for listening to The Digital Fix, digital marketing done right. This season is presented by Mio Marketplace. Mio, the marketer's matchmaker. If you're a brand marketer or an agency, media, or platform that works with them, Mio is a marketplace built just for you. Visit them at miomarketplace.com. And by Moy & Halter, a strategic consultancy. If you're struggling with getting your creative and content to efficiently work with your media strategy, we help solve for that, typically in 30 days or less. Reach out for a free consultation today at moyandhalter.com.